Imagine you have moved into a new city and you are planning your daily drive to work. Now first you select this route which takes a huge amount of time and also you have to burn a lot of gas. So you're pretty disappointed. So the next day you try a shortcut and then maybe the next day you avoid even more traffic lights. So one by one you solve all of these problems and then you find the perfect route that uses the least amount of gas and there are least amount of traffic lights, and yeah, it is fully optimized. You are improving efficiency and saving time and money just by making some small changes that are based on what works better for you. And that is called optimization. Training a neural network works the same way. We start by adjusting the model's settings little by little until we reach that final point of efficiency where it can make extremely accurate predictions and very small mistakes. Hello everyone, I'm Selena and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, then hi. We are in the middle of a playlist in which I talk about all things deep learning, but in a way that actually makes sense. Today we are going to unpack this entire process of optimization, starting from gradient descent to those weird looking loss surfaces. We are going to cover it all and it's going to be super intuitive. So let's jump right in. But why are we even talking about optimization in the first place? Well, when you first build a neural network, the weights that are the numbers that actually control how the whole neural network works are completely random, and so they make no sense at all. If you just left them like that, then the network wouldn't learn anything at all. And that is why we need optimization, to adjust these weights so that the model can make sense and make accurate predictions and reduce error. And without this, deep learning wouldn't work at all. Let us start by understanding what the concept behind gradient descent is. Let us once again get back to our imaginary world. So let's say you are standing on top of a hill and you are blindfolded and you want to get down. So the first thing that you will do is you will use your feet to feel the ground and see what is the direction of the slope from there. If you see that it is sloping downwards a bit, you feel that your leg is curving downwards, then you will move in that direction. Why? Because it's going downwards and that's where you want to go, to the bottom of the hill. Similarly, the brain of a neural network is trying to feel its way towards better performance, towards more efficiency and lesser mistakes. Let us take this one step further. Imagine a bowl-shaped curve, and this is our loss function. It tells us how badly our neural network is doing. The red dot here is our best guess at what the weights or the parameters must be. But remember, it is not correct. It is just a random guess. At every point, as the red dot moves, the gradient descent looks at the slope, which is also called as the gradient, and says, okay, if the gradient is this much, I will move the same amount in the opposite direction. Now you might be wondering, wait, what just happened? Why opposite direction? Weren't we wanting to go downhill? Why opposite? For this, you need to understand the technicality behind the term gradient. So what gradient really means is that if I increase the input by an amount x, by how much amount will my output increase? So you see, all of this is going in the upward direction because you want to see by how much increase in your input you can change the output levels. So now if you want to go downwards and you want to reduce the loss, you will obviously go in the opposite direction of what the gradient tells you. And that's why opposite. Now, if you're okay with a tiny bit of math, let us look at the rule that it follows. Now, don't panic. It's just a little bit of math, and what it means is that we are reducing a tiny amount of slope from our weights and scaling it by something called the learning rate. Now, we already have something called the slope or the gradient that tells us which direction to move in. But how big should our step be? Now, this is decided by the learning rate. If the learning rate is a big amount, then you take a larger step. If it is a small amount, then you should take a smaller step to reach your destination, which is the bottom of this curve-shaped bowl. It is also very important to decide the perfect number for this learning rate, because if it is too big, then it will just overshoot and the ball will bounce around wildly. But if it is too small, then we will go very slow, and it will be just painfully slow and we'll never be able to reach our destination. On that note, let us now discuss how we should decide how to take these steps and what should be the size of these steps. And it turns out that there are multiple different ways to do it based on the number of data we are using at each step. and these are also called as the variants of gradient descent. First up is batch gradient descent. This one is like being super thorough with your revision. So in this, we look at every single data point and we calculate the gradient using all of the data points in our data set, and then we take a step. It sounds pretty accurate, right? Well, yes, it is, and the gradient that you get can be super precise. But the problem is that it can be super slow, especially if you've got a massive data set. It is like trying to read the entire dictionary before deciding on a single word. Now look at this, a completely different scenario wherein we pick a random point from the entire data set and see how much gradient it has, and then change the weights based on just this one single data point. This is called stochastic gradient descent, or SGD, and this is another variant of gradient descent. It's fast, it's scrappy, and yeah, it is a bit messy because the updates bounce around a bit because one sample can't tell you the entire story. But guess what? With the initial approach that was batch gradient descent, once you reach something called a local minima, you would stop there and you would never be able to find the global minima. And so this approach is better than that, because over here there might be a case that you start with one random sample point, and then when you go to the other one, it just skips that local minima. You just jump to another point, and then it is easier to find the global minima. Finally, we have got the sweet spot, or mini batch gradient descent. This is the most popular one in deep learning. You take a small chunk of the data, let's say 32 or 128 samples, and you compute the gradient using just this small batch. Not the entire data set like batch, and not even like stochastic gradient descent where you just take one sample. No, but a small set of the sample. Using this, the updates are smoother and it also plays nice with GPUs. So it is the best of both worlds. Now, gradient descent sounds great in theory, right? You just have to find the gradient and move downwards according to a learning rate. Well, it's not that easy because there are a lot of challenges that we faced while using gradient descent. So let's study them. First up is slow convergence and oscillations. So imagine a super narrow valley. You are trying to walk downhill, but each step is so constricted and it is such a tight spot that you are even going sideways. This is what happens when the loss surface has steep sides and a flat bottom, and this is what we call a ravine. It takes forever for the loss function to reach the bottom of the pit. It just bounces off from side to side. Next up, we've got the dreaded local minima problem. These are the pits in the loss surface wherein the gradient becomes zero and the gradient descent function just stops. Now the thing is, it is a good solution, but it is not the best solution, because maybe just a little bit further there is a global minima that goes even more down, and that is the actual spot where your gradient descent function should stop. Now for the sneakier ones, we have saddle points. These are the weird spots where your gradient becomes zero, but you are neither at a minima or at a maxima. From one direction, the surface curves upwards, and from the other direction, it curves downwards. So the gradient descent gets confused and just stalls. To solve all of these challenges, we have advanced optimizers like Momentum, RMSProp, and Atom. They add extra tricks like memory and adaptive step sizes to keep the ball rolling even in tricky terrain. Let us start by talking about this really cool trick in deep learning called Momentum Optimizer. If you look at the gradient descent slowly trying to zigzag its way downwards towards the bottom of the pit, towards where the gradient is zero, you know it can be really frustrating because it goes slowly sometimes, fast sometimes, and it is unable to decide what speed to move at, and sometimes it even stops at these local minimas. So this is all super frustrating, and that's where momentum comes in. But what if we could give our optimizer a little bit of push so that it remembers something from its memory of the previous step instead of just computing the gradient based on the current step? That could make a lot of difference, and it will add something called velocity. This way, the optimizer flows more naturally towards the goal. That is the whole idea behind momentum. It's like rolling a ball down a hill. Initially, it goes very slowly, but with time, it catches speed and velocity, and then it comes into a state of momentum, and it goes really fast. And once it's rolling, it doesn't stop for every little bump or wobble in the terrain. It keeps going. Technically, it works like this. We maintain a velocity vector called b. It is an exponentially weighted average of the recent gradients. Each new gradient gets blended with this velocity, and then we use this velocity to update the weights. That beta you see there tells us about how much we care about our past direction, and it is usually about 0.9. The whole idea is to smooth out the noise and ride the momentum. Momentum actually helps the model converge much faster. With just a few steps and less noise, you reach the best possible solution. That is why it is the first choice in most of the deep learning models, especially convolution neural networks. Now imagine this. You are hiking across a big mountain range. Now some parts of this are smooth and flat, while the others are steep and full of rocks. But you have just one rule of walking, and that is you will take the same step size no matter how the terrain is. Now that doesn't sound very smart, right? Well, that's exactly what gradient descent does. It takes the same step size in every direction, no matter what kind of parameter it is and no matter what kind of a terrain it is. So this is not good, this is not optimized. But what if we could be more thoughtful? What if we could look and say, hey, this direction looks steep, I will take smaller steps. Or this one looks gentle, I can afford to take bigger steps. That is the whole intuition behind RMSProp. It is like an optimizer but with great common sense. Technically, it keeps a moving average of the squared gradients. So when the gradients are too large, it says hold on, and when they're too small, it says okay, go for it. This means that each weight in your network gets its own custom learning rate that is tuned dynamically as the training unfolds. And this isn't just guesswork. RMSProp actually normalizes the update by dividing the gradient by a square root of its own recent history. What makes it powerful is how it works extraordinarily on these bumpy, non-stationary surfaces. This is super common in deep neural networks, especially recurrent neural networks. Alright, so now we have talked about momentum. It helps us move faster by building up velocity. And we have also talked about RMSProp that tells us how much we should change our step size in order to move efficiently. But what if I told you that there is an optimizer that combines both these powers into one? And that's ADAM, short for Adaptive Moment Estimation. ADAM keeps track of two things for every parameter in your model. The first, moment, basically the average of the gradients, just like momentum. The second, moment, the average of the squared gradients, just like RMSProp. So now each parameter has not only the sense of direction, but a sense of how wide the path has been recently. With these two pieces of information, ADAM scales and smooths every step. In math language, ADAM's update rule looks like this. It is simple but powerful. Big gradients get normalized and small consistent gradients gain more influence. So there you have it. Some of the smartest tools in the deep learning toolbox when it comes to optimization. We started with gradient descent and then took a detour through mini-batch, batch and stochastic gradient descent. And next we navigated our way through the tricky terrain and into momentum and RMSProp, and then finally arrived at the all-star ADAM, which is fast, reliable and super efficient. That was all for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it and got to learn something new. And if you did, then don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I'll be back next week with another exciting video. Till then, thank you for watching and see you again.